your opinions and voices here. So let's dive in, though. We're talking some NFC and AFC North here, and we're starting out here with the AFC North. We're going to be going into kind of what these teams can possibly bring, maybe some predictions, maybe some camp previews and what's been going on, maybe some big position battles that are going on with these teams and what they could potentially do here this season in the NFL. So let's dive into the AFC North, and let's just like the odds out right away. Let's touch on these. So right now, the Baltimore Ravens are currently in the driver's seat when it comes to the Vegas odds at winning the division, and that's plus 115. So if you're new to gambling, you're betting 100 to win 115. Same.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
plus 115. Yeah.
Plus 115. Yeah.
I'll stop talking.
No, it's all good. All these teams are plus in Vegas odds. So Cleveland Browns are next, plus 155. Pittsburgh Steelers with broken Ben Roethlisberger, plus 440. Bet 100 to win 440. And then Cincinnati Bengals coming in plus 1,600. So they're the long shot of this group. They have a young quarterback, Joe Burrow, but we don't think that he's necessarily. I mean, he's got a tall order here, especially with the Browns and the Ravens at the top of this division to kind of carry this one. So based off of that, win totals for each of these teams. Cincinnati at the bottom of this is 6.5 wins as far as FanDuel Sportsbook. Cleveland Browns 10.5 wins. The Baltimore Ravens 11 wins. So right there, back with Cleveland and Baltimore separated by a half a game, and then Pittsburgh coming in 8.5 wins on their projected win total for the season. So that's where we're at with the favorites of this division. Now let's dive in a little bit, Scotty. Anything on that kind of calls out to you? I know we sometimes talk about best bets. We did that with previous teams that we've covered in our division previews. But what do you see here as far as like who would you put your money on to win this division, and what value could you get on maybe a team that's not favorited?
So I actually hadn't looked at the odds for this division prior to you saying them right there. I'm slightly surprised that the Ravens are favored over the Browns. Maybe it's just because it's the Browns, but I bet right now most of the money on winning this division right now is on the Browns. It would shock me, and I don't know where it's at. It would shock me if it's not. Everyone loves themselves Cleveland right now. Coming off last year where they won a playoff game, finally. Competed obviously against the Chiefs in that divisional round. Granted, Patrick Mahomes, cheers, was out basically the entire second half, and Chad Henne made a great fourth down play to seal that game. But I think everyone's on the Browns. And the Browns have a ton of talent. It's all gonna come down to me with the Browns is who is Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield year 1 played pretty solid for a rookie, no doubt. Year 2, kind of a disaster. And then last year, for the most part, really good, but he was inconsistent. Like he had a lot of people don't look. If you look at his stat line, he had like 4 or 5 games where he didn't even throw for 200 yards. So there's some inconsistency there with Baker. I don't know if Baker's a guy that can lead a team deep into the playoffs or a Super Bowl. I just don't know if he's that guy. And this is a big year for him because this is also a division that has 2 quarterbacks that are probably next in line to get large contracts. You're looking at Lamar Jackson and Baker Mayfield, right off the heels of obviously Josh Allen in Buffalo getting that huge extension. Lamar has an MVP under his belt. Baker's going to be looking to get paid because they were all in that same draft class. So all these guys will be looking to get paid, and so it'll be a big one for Baker. Obviously, Lamar is going to have to battle against COVID for the 3rd time possibly. We'll see. If he can get that trifecta. I don't mean to make light of COVID, but he has had it twice, had to sit out camp. But I think most of the money's on Cleveland. But we can dive into more specifics on these teams.
Well, let's dive in right there. By the way, Gold Glover, Browns all day. I'm calling a 12-5 record for first overall in the division. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Their upside is so strong. Like when it comes to their ceiling, I feel like they have the highest ceiling of any of the teams in this division for sure. I mean, obviously Pittsburgh is on the outs with their quarterback being a little older. I don't see them. I mean, you saw what they did last season. I mean, they started out strong and just melted away based off of the rigor of the season just kind of setting and taking its toll. And it's just I just don't see them competing here. Gold Glover, Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, solid running game with both in the top 20 rushing yards in 2020 season. Last season, Chubb had 1,067. Yeah, I mean they have some talent, they have some weapons, and especially in the running game, they've been able to control a little bit more of the ball from that standpoint. Now, let's dive in. Let's jump in. The Cleveland Browns finished the season in 2020 11-5. So they weren't a bad team last year, and this was after they lost Odell Beckham Jr. from an ACL injury. They won 7 of their final 11 games in 2020, including the playoffs, after losing Odell Beckham Jr. to a season-ending ACL injury. So just a heads up there. We'll touch on that here a little bit more in a second, but actually, let's just touch on it right now. Now, this is an opportunity for them to either, one, they know what they can be without him, so maybe you can get some value in maybe trading him potentially. There's been rumors about that. Number 2, you keep him and see what he can do for you as far as just trying to get, your team over the hump when it comes to, getting further on in the season than they did last year. So that's another aspect of this that's interesting. But diving into some of the important battles in camp, there's a little bit of a linebacker battle. There's no secret that Browns need to be better at the second level than they were in 2020. They acknowledged this when they signed linebacker Anthony Walker from Indianapolis, and then they selected Notre Dame standout Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, one of the best names coming out of the draft. I did good on that pronunciation, Scotty.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
I think you were borderline close.
I was borderline. Did I miss it up? Did I still mess it up?
I think it might be Owusu, but I think you said Owasu.
Owasu.
Just if we're like gymnast judges, you got like just a couple tenths taken off for that.
Yeah, there we go. So as far as that goes, they're trying to address some of those concerns. They already have a pretty decent, team. Again, year 4 isn't exactly going to be that much easier for Baker Mayfield. So, by the way, Gold Glover here, 9th overall hardest schedule. So there's gonna be some challenges here for them as far as what they have ahead of them here. So Baker's gonna get a little bit more chance to prove himself when it comes to this schedule. But yeah, Scotty, what are you thinking here obviously it sounds like you have them in a good spot to win this division, but
I said that I think most people think that.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not saying I don't know. I'm a little torn. The Browns don't have a lot of weaknesses. Their roster, top to bottom, is one of the best in the league, no doubt, and probably better than anyone else's in this division when you look over every point of the roster. You talked about linebacker. I think they might be a little weak at the second level with the linebacking core. Even still, their secondary was actually not very good last year. They did add John Johnson from the Rams, safety, in the offseason, which was a nice pickup, and drafted Grant Delpit, another safety high up in the draft. So they tried to address that. They added Jadeveon Clowney on the D-line. We'll see what he can do. Jadeveon Clowney's been on like 4 teams in 4 years. So how good is he? Obviously, he was hurt a bunch last year. And even when he was playing, he kind of wasn't getting after the passer. He's not really that difference maker. Like, he's going to help against the run, but I think he's a little overrated. Obviously, they're adding Odell Beckham back with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, as Gold Glover talked about. And that offensive line, especially run blocking wise, is really, really solid. And then Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper, Rashard Higgins is the third wideout. Like, they have depth. They're talented. They have everything you need to make a long run. It'll be interesting, like coming in with higher expectations than they've ever had, obviously. 2 years ago, they kind of had big expectations and kind of fell flat, obviously. Played better last year. I think they're going to be really good. I think they're going to be in the playoffs. I think my problem is I think most people feel like the Browns are the team, and that shies me away from when Vegas doesn't even have them as a favorite. When I say that most money's on the Browns, I now I'm starting to think Ravens, just because I think the Ravens are a more reliable squad. The Ravens are going to be there.
Well coached.
The Browns are kind of like, they could be great, and I could easily see them being around 500 if they kind of fall flat a little bit. They're kind of boom or bust a little bit for me, where I know the Ravens Ravens are going to be a playoff team. They're going to, like, what, worst case scenario, they go like 11-6. Maybe 10-7 worst case if you're the Ravens. John Harbaugh, great coach. You have a great defense. They know how to win games, even if their quarterback's a little limited in my mind, but they've added pieces. So let's dive into the Ravens a little bit. The other team that I think will compete for this division.
Yeah, absolutely. Ravens, again, finished 11-5 in this division just a year ago. So they're obviously the favorites. Obviously, Lamar Jackson is always going to be at the top of lists, even though you think, and this is your hot take from last year, that he's never going to win a Super Bowl in his career.
I did say that.
And
Lamar Jackson, I'm more confident than ever that Lamar Jackson will never win a Super Bowl in his career.
Wow. See, and he's standing by it. I mean, it's not like he's fallen off that take. It's always going to be there. But
I'll be right every year. So keep coming back, guys. And if I'm wrong at some point somehow, if every other team gets hit by a meteorite and the Ravens win with Lamar Jackson, come back for that too and just throw me all the shit you want, and I'll take it. I'm ready for it.
Yeah. So as far as the Baltimore Ravens go, they have some different things they're working through when it comes to additions. So when it comes to the newcomers / players returning from injury, Rashad Bateman is the receiver. It's no secret the Ravens simply haven't been good enough through the air. People have trying to have been figuring out how can they just, man, they got Lamar Jackson here, but to your point of him never winning a Super Bowl, stretching the field has been kind of a thing where they hasn't been able to necessarily throw the long ball, specifically more so on a regular basis. He's always, just kind of struggling to keep the consistency there. Teaming up with Marquise Brown, Devin Duvernay, are a couple guys there, and new veteran arrival Sammy Watkins. So that means
and Rashad Bateman, they took in the first round wide receiver out of Minnesota.
Correct.
Who got hurt though. He's hurt right now.
Yeah, so that's not a great start for them. But obviously they still have, again, well-coached team. So, from this standpoint, I feel like, I just, like you said, the Ravens are more of a trustworthy team in this division. They're always going to be there. They're going to compete, and they grind out games too. They're not afraid to grind out a game, even a slow, defensive battle either. So that's where we're at with them. Scotty, what do you got? What are your thoughts?
Yeah. I know Kevin Stefanski, the coach of the Browns, won Coach of the Year last year, but I still think John Harbaugh has proven it over his career. Consistent, wins games. One of the best coaches in the league, in my opinion. So they're going to be right there. Their run game has always been prolific. I like J.K. Dobbins a lot. They still have Gus Edwards as well. That 1-2 combo will be able to move the ball with Lamar running, of course, as well. They added a lot of people. They added Sammy Watkins. They added, Rashad Bateman, like they talked about. You have Mark Andrews at tight end. You have Devin Duvernay. A lot of pieces at the wide receiver and weapons. But my problem is, and it drove me nuts 2 years ago when Lamar Jackson won the MVP. Every time I watch them play, it blew my mind that defenses weren't taking away the middle of the field. Because all he did was throw to the middle of the field, usually to tight ends, but also to, the slots, or if it was a wide receiver coming in outside the numbers. Unless he was throwing deep outside the numbers, Lamar Jackson is a disaster. He's never proven he can do it. So that shrinks the field a ton, and it helps defenses. And one of the few teams that have figured it out actually is the Chiefs defense, I feel like, because they're 3-0 against Lamar. He hasn't lost a lot of regular season games, but he's 0-3 against the Chiefs and has struggled each and every time he's played them. So it's blown my mind that teams hadn't figured it out. And last year, I feel like a lot of teams played him a lot better. He did get off the schneid with a playoff win, but that was a ugly defensive battle against the Titans that he got the W in, and then they choked next week. So I don't know. The defense is good, but aging. They still have Derek Wolfe, Calais Campbell. These guys are...
They are getting older.
Exactly. Getting up there. I still have question marks at linebacker. They drafted Patrick Queen, who is an elite athlete at the linebacker 2 years, not this year, but last year in the first round. But he wasn't the coverage guy that they expected and has to work on that. They still have Marcus Peters in the backfield, Marlon Humphrey, some nice at corners, but Marlon Humphrey's there still. And their safeties I have question marks for. So listen, I just believe in them to somehow win a lot of regular season games. I don't believe in them in the postseason. I don't think Lamar will go far in the postseason or make a Super Bowl. And I'll say win a Super Bowl. I don't want to go too far. Win a Super Bowl ever in his career. So I think this is more of a playoff team, or I'm sorry, a regular season team than a postseason team, but they're going to win games and they're reliable. So you know they're going to be there at the end, where Cleveland, I think, is a little more boom or bust, which I usually like to go with. I'm just worried that they're not the favorite, and I think all the money is pouring in on Cleveland because I think most people out there love Cleveland.
Yeah, Cleveland's just a sexy pick when it comes to betting. You know, like they got the flashy players. They got Baker, they got Odell, they got all of these. I mean, they just, you know, they have that historic fan base, obviously, that has been just yearning for a winning team for so long, and you know, they're just a team that has a lot of people's attention right now, which I think is playing into some of the Vegas odds potentially a little bit. So we'll see what ends up happening here. But there's another division team in this little grouping that we want to touch on as well, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are also, you know, they're coming off a 2020 record of 12-4. Now, that 12-4 is kind of misleading because I feel like they weren't. I don't know if they were as good as their 12-4. They're the best. They're the worst 12-4 team we've had in a long time, I feel.
Did they start out? They started out 10 or 11-0.
Oh, and then they started. Yeah, and then they completely, the train derailed, and they just, you saw the aging of Big Ben. You saw everything, which is, it's so weird when you look back at this and you're like, wait, 12-4. How did they manage to be so bad so quick after such a great season to start? Now, you know, going into this one, there was a lot of rumors that Ben Roethlisberger, whether or not he was coming back, 39-year-old quarterback, not looking good in his latter year, was he going to retire potentially? You had some other quarterbacks that retired, Drew Brees, and you had Phillip Rivers, who were kind of in the same boat at the same time, not performing at the latter end of their careers, and Ben Roethlisberger said, no, I'm coming back. And so that's going to be where we're looking at the backup quarterback as a battle here, because who knows if Ben Roethlisberger is going to end up staying healthy over the course of a season. So then you turn over to the backup roles here. Fellas, as always, appreciate the awesome takes and solid sports chat. Love to catch up with you guys later. Have a great rest of the show. Hey, Go Glover, thanks a lot, man. Sorry we didn't get to your Packers. We're going to get to those here in a little bit, but you can always check out the VOD and check out what we have to say about your Packers. All good things, though. I'll tell you that.
Appreciate you joining.
So, appreciate it. Thank you so much, and have a great night, man. Awesome. So, yeah. Going back to this little backup quarterback battle, which I was mentioning, Mason Rudolph, and then you have ex-first round pick Dwayne Haskins, who has had some rough
strip club enthusiast.
We haven't talked strip. Man, we're back on the strip club talk, man. I'm telling you. So he is back, and they think, at least Tomlin can think he can turn things around here. Here's the thing: if anybody can handle a guy like Antonio Brown for as long as he did, you can handle a Dwayne Haskins, I think. So, you know, I feel like there's no issues there. However, that is going to be something considering Ben Roethlisberger's health and his age, whether or not those guys are going to be getting a little bit of a look here in this season. So keep an eye on that, who comes in with a second backup role, and we'll figure out, you know, how things pan out from there. Another newcomer / guys who's coming either new or coming back from injury. Najee Harris at running back is a big one because Pittsburgh's ground game has been practically ineffective at best over the last 3 seasons, finishing 32nd, 29th, and 31st in rushing yards over the last 3 years. They have been absolutely atrocious for a team that has historically been really good at the running game, at pushing the ball downfield using the ground game. So They needed to get that figured out. They think they've done that with Najee Harris, who's a nice, promising young rookie. So we'll see if that's going to end up coming, anything coming out of that. But yeah, well, what do you think about the Pittsburgh Steelers and kind of where their ceiling is at? Obviously, not a lot of people have them going very far in this division.
For a team that started off 11-0 last year, how quickly did they drop off? Finishing 12-4. And then all of a sudden in their first round playoff game, down 28-0 after the first quarter to the Browns. And I still don't believe in this team going into this year. Usually the Steelers are kind of like the Ravens. Those are the two teams that are going to battle it out for the AFC North. I don't like this team on paper, especially offensively. I'm terrified for their offensive line and quarterback. They have a quarterback that can't move and an offensive line that is kind of like patched together. They lost a couple of them this offseason with Villanueva and they had their guard that they drafted out of Stanford years ago that retired, actually. So they're kind of piecing together that offensive line. It's actually going to be worse than last year. I like their weapons with Deontay Johnson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool, and Eric Ebron at tight end. Like, those are legit. Najee Harris, as you touched on, should be given a lot of opportunity to make some plays, whether it's through the run game or through the passing game, which I think he'll be better off in actually in the passing game, because Big Ben loves to get rid of the ball quickly and will dump it off to his running backs all the time if he can. But I hate this offense. I hate it from the vantage point of the quarterback and offensive line. I think those two spots are huge weaknesses. Defensively, they're going to be really good, as the Steelers pretty much always are defensively. That defensive line with Tuitt, Hayward, TJ Watt, who's one of the best pass rushers in the game. They have Devin Bush coming back from injury, who's the rookie linebacker they took 10th overall from Michigan last year, who's a playmaker at that second level. They still have Joe Hayden, Minkah Fitzpatrick on the back end, guys like that, Terrell Edmonds, the safety. So they have a lot of pieces on defense. I think that's what's going to keep them in games, but I don't know, man. Like, I feel like this really feels like a 500 football team. Maybe even, you can't finish 500 this year because you play 17 games. So maybe like an 8-9 team. Like, I don't have high hopes for the Steelers this year. And they're kind of lost directionally until they get a quarterback and shore up that offensive line. And unfortunately, once they do that, those pieces on defense are aging and won't be together. And the Steelers, dare I say it, are a year or two from possibly being in a spot that they almost are never in. And that's the word rebuild.
Yeah. Yeah, it's wild to think the Steelers are where they're at right now. But last team we want to cover here in this one is the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals are coming in off of a 4-11-1 record in 2020. Now they are projected to get, let me go back to their win totals here. Looks like they are projected to get a little bit better this year. 6.5 is their win total for the Cincinnati Bengals. So they're going to get maybe a couple more wins here. And that's based off of Joe Burrow being hopefully healthy and consistent this season as well. So he gets Jamar Chase, his former buddy from LSU, to be reunited with him via the 5th overall pick in this past year's draft. And Chase will have his eyes, Joe Burrow's eyes on him constantly, because they obviously have a good rapport with each other, and Jamar Chase is an incredible wide receiver. So we'll keep an eye on that. But the biggest piece here is the offensive line for Cincinnati. One, protecting a quarterback that's coming off a major injury. And two, they have a lot of guys that are just kind of like so-so. They're still kind of patching up some of their offensive line. Their 2019 first-rounder, Jonah Williams, who has 10 games under his belt, needs to prove he can stay healthy. Bengals need to figure out who will start both guard positions. That's kind of in flux, so who knows what's going to happen there. So there's a lot of things they need to figure out on that offensive line, but this team is still on the up and ups when it comes to trying to figure out who they are and try to build some pieces around. They got their little core of LSU tandems here, Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. So from there, it's just trying to get the best pieces to keep them upright and keep them moving downfield. So Not a lot of prospects for them to go far this season. However, they do have a nice, young, talented core here, and we'll see what ends up happening with this young team.
Yeah, real quick. Obviously, this team is still building, still a year or two away from competing at any significant level. But Joe Burrow's still a dude, right? Like, I know he got hurt last year, but he was the number 1 pick in the draft. He played well last year as a rookie before he got hurt, especially behind an offensive line that was not good. He still performed and balled out for him to at least some extent. So he's a guy that has been hesitant. Reports are he's been hesitant coming off his ACL injury in camp, but with time, I have no doubts about Joe Burrow. He's going to be an upper echelon quarterback in this league. There's no doubt in my mind. You got Joe Mixon, nice running back piece. Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase. They added, obviously, as you talked about, T. Higgins. So they have weapons. You're right about the offensive line. Like, their offense is only going to be as good as their offensive line provides for them, which I thought it was kind of a mistake for them to take Jamar Chase over an offensive lineman, whether whoever they wanted to target there. That they had their pick of the litter with Penei Sewell not taken yet. A couple other guys that I'm drawing a blank on. That I know the guy that's with the Chargers from Northwestern that I'm drawing a blank on his name right now. Has balled out in camp, so I would have addressed offensive line if I were them over taking Jamar Chase. But reuniting LSU stars, not a bad option. Defensively, I think they're going to struggle. I think Carl Lawson was their best defender last year. He's now a New York Jet. You look at this defensive roster outside of like Jesse Bates at safety, who I like a lot, but he's also upset that he's not getting a new contract yet. They don't have any name you look at and you're like, oh, that guy's good. Like, their defense needs a complete makeover, and it's going to take time. And so this team's going to struggle, but it'll be fun to watch this offense come together, and hopefully Joe Burrow continues to progress, because Joe Burrow's a stud in my opinion and a fearless guy. And I know people are saying he's hesitant, but once games start, like, I mean, right now we're talking about practice, right?
Practice. We're talking about practice.
So once games start, I think Burrow's a baller. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll make plays, and they'll be fun to watch offensively, but they're a disaster defensively, in my opinion. And the offensive line needs a lot of work.
Yeah, so there we have